Hi everyone, this is Save Orcas, and this video is about new ideas for the Warcraft 3 game. It is primarily intended for the Blizzard developers because our community has no direct way to communicate with you guys. So let's start. And just to have an idea what's possible, here's the recent foundational changes made by Blizzard. So actually, they can tweak and they have the means of tweaking the game. So we'll try to also come up with a few ideas that will promote certain game plays for every race. The first change we can recommend to Blizzard to implement is to add 10 lumber at the start of the game to each race. It's a controversial change, but throughout this video I will explain the benefits of adding it. The second thing we will look into will be early game, and in particular, the early game can be made more fun if every race will have easy access to their shop, meaning that they will have meaningful build orders and items to buy in the early game and to use them as well. And Undeads is the race that always do that. In all their build orders, they start their game by buying items from the shop. Orc almost does that. They can buy items from the shop, but then their grant is delayed. For example, in the recent game of Lynn, in DWSL, 2 months ago before he stopped playing, against Night Elf, you can see where he placed his shop. He is placing it near the first creep camp, so he can creep the camp, get the items, heal self, and move on to the map. Orcs are forced to build their shop far away from base because in the early game they don't have time to get back and buy items from their base. But with 10 extra lumber at start, there will be a way for them to build their shop in time for their first hero to buy items. You can see this in the replay I'm showing. I added 10 lumber at start, and then the peon collecting 10 more lumber, and the shop is in time for a blade to buy items and to go with the ground onto the map. So that could be something for orcs to use and will be used probably as a standard build order if 10 lumbers would be added, given to them at start. The second change we will suggest for orcs would be to increase the food provided from 11 to 12 and adjust the lumber cost as well. And the reason is that orc is a reactive race. Orc doesn't expand in the early game, can't expand. Orc has weak scouting and rarely creeps early in the game. One of the reasons is that they can make only one grunt with a hero at the start. If they want to make a second grunt, they need a second burrow. So to give orcs some options to have a early game with creeping, start early game with creeping, and nudge them using grunts more, nudge to them actually using melee units, we suggest to do this change, and you can see how the build order goes. Orcs can build one peon less and build two grunts after that, feed two grunts, and then tech afterwards. And with two grunts, they can creep faster. So another option would be tech as usual without one peon, second burrow, and then the second grunt has space to be built earlier. So again, more options to use grunts for orcs. It could give orcs more options in the early game, which would be very nice. Next is human, and human race will also benefit from extra 10 lumber at start. For example, their one base build order and pala rifle build order will become smoother. If we speak about spicing up their early game, it's hard to do anything because militia, creeping with militia, simply pumping peasants, is probably the best thing to do for a human, and it's hard to beat that. One idea would be to add an item into human shop. An idea would be what could help them and won't be that strong, would be something that could heal them. So an idea is to add Scepter of Piety, an item that costs 50 gold and converts a peasant into an apprentice priest. A level 1 unit that can heal like with 12 HP per second, like Forest uh, Troll Priest, and that could nudge human players for strategies with early shop. It's hard to come up with something very original for humans. Sorry, human players, there won't be that many ideas because your race is quite well established, but we try.
But I tried, didn't I? God damn it. At least I did that.
Night elves will also benefit from 10 lumber at start because, for example, they can build their second moon well earlier. And also there is a suggestion to reduce the cost of the Tree of Life by 5 lumber. All of that will allow for a new interesting build order for Night Elves. And here it goes. 4 wisps go to lumber at start. With 1 round, they gather 20 lumber. And the other wisp makes the Tree of Life first. So 160 lumber at start plus 20, 180 lumber. That 5 lumber reduction allows to build the Tree of Life on time, around 15 seconds. Then the wisp that goes to the tavern can buy the hero right on time, and the whole build order becomes very smooth. It's going to be a nice addition to the gameplay of Night Elves. The second suggestions for Night Elves would be regarding the possibility for them to use early shop. They use usually a shop to tank a small camp with a hero, but then if we look at the items in the early game, the night starts at minute 3.5 roughly, and they can buy a moonstone which does nothing at night and it becomes useless. So the suggestion is actually to give Moonstone the same regeneration Moonwells have, roughly a third of that, which is half HP Moonwell mana per second. Undeads. For undeads, we recommend for safety reasons to increase the creep cost by 10 lumber and to decrease the cost of the tier 2 upgrade by 10 as well. So net zero change in lumber for them, but just to avoid any shenanigans with the ghoul pool. And as for something that can help their gameplay, we also recommend to decrease the cost of the creep by 20 gold and at the same time increase the cost of the ghoul by 5 gold to counterbalance that. So it's a nerf to the ghouls. We'll speak about them later. But the 20 gold decrease in cost of the crypt will allow to get undeads their hero 2 seconds faster. And if you look at the build, the ziggurat is right on time after altar is made. So these 2 seconds will help undeads to get their hero earlier. And at the same time, you can see they can have a new other build, altar first, then ziggurat, then with a 4th acolyte they can make their crypt, because that 4th acolyte doesn't have to wait that much longer. So they undeads with this little change can experiment with their early build, and that would be something interesting for them to do. So to repeat, the main suggestion is to decrease the cost of the crypt by 20 gold. This will allow undeads to have their heroes 2 seconds earlier because their heroes are usually 8 seconds late from the altar. And Speaking about ghouls, there are some ideas how to address them. Recently, we had a nerf to their damage, so the suggestion is to revert back the damage nerf and work with the cost reduction and maybe attack cooldown reduction. What is nice about this suggestion that it targets undeads that go heavy on ghouls, but the 2 seconds in the early game for their heroes would be highly appreciated and will give lots of new ideas in the early game for the undead players. If we speak about tier 2 changes, we can target specific upgrades that each race has. Orcs pillage can be moved from tier 1 to tier 2 and the cost could be adjusted, as well as research time speed up. That would be a decent change because actually to make this strategy work, orcs need like 3-4 grunts, and when they get them, they will be almost tier, they can be already tier 2, hiring a tavern hero and researching brute strengths and rushing towards enemy's base. The idea is we can do similar thing for other upgrades. For example, magic sentry can be moved from arcane sectum to keep and require no research. Again, cost 50-50 and research time also 30. Humans don't have time to research this upgrade in Arcane Sanctum when they build it, once they build it, because usually they prefer to get first 2 priests, then dispel, then maybe a sork. So no time for this upgrade. If it is moved to keep, then they can research it in parallel, and actually that can help them reveal certain movements on the map or what happens on the map using their arcane towers. Ultravision could be swapped with Nature's Blessing because Nature's Blessing could be then researched while Night Owl stack from tier 2 to tier 3. And Ultravision early was on tier 1, now it's on tier 2. So definitely its research time could be reduced by 15 seconds like it was in the PTR. I don't know why the change didn't move through. Finally, undeads don't have such special upgrade, but it can be created using, for example, the nice picture of regeneration aura that Blizzard has in its files. The idea is that it will increase regeneration rate on Blight by 25% from 2 to 2.5 HP per second for all the units. So a defensive upgrade, and at the same time, optionally, like acolytes, HP regeneration could be reduced to match all the units regen. That would be a nerf to undeads, and slight compensation of hit points would be okay as well. For tier 3 changes, we can recommend reducing research time of all master training upgrades by 15 seconds. This actually makes sense because these upgrades are done in production buildings, and taking 75 seconds of that production time on top of waiting for 140 seconds for the tier 3 upgrade to finish is a little bit too much. Some streamers may say that Druid of the Talons don't need such a buff because they could become too strong versus Orc, which is not the case. It was a strong strategy many years ago, but for the last 5 years, as I know of, it's not even close to being meta. So that's going to be actually a help to that strategy. As for Banshee's buff, well, possession is a strong ability and it has to be fixed regarding air units, and its visibility has to become better, but it has nothing to do with research time. Research time could be shortened because this upgrade is done very late in the game, like minute 15 in the late game. So 15 seconds won't make a difference there, but it may nudge players to use benches more often. That's all for part 1. Hope you wanna take a look at part 2 and 3 as well.